the restaurant receipts. My name is Nicole Anderson, and I discovered my husband was cheating when I found restaurant receipts hidden in his car's glove compartment. Not receipts for business dinners he'd mentioned or casual lunches I already knew about, but receipts from expensive romantic restaurants in Chicago. Always for 2 people. Always on Friday evenings, documenting a pattern of intimate dinners that had been happening for months without my knowledge. I found them by accident on a Saturday morning in February while searching for our car insurance card after a minor fender bender in a Target parking lot. The other driver needed proof of insurance, and I'd known the card was somewhere in the glove compartment of Daniel's BMW because he was meticulous about keeping documents organized and accessible. What I found instead was a stack of receipts rubber banded together, hidden beneath the insurance documents and vehicle registration, tucked away like evidence someone hoped would never be discovered. 17 receipts. All from restaurants I recognized as expensive, romantic, the kind of places you took someone you wanted to impress, rather than someone you'd been married to for 18 years. The dates formed a pattern. Every Friday for the past 4 months, from October through this month. The charges ranged from $180 to $340, always for 2 entrees, 2 cocktails, sometimes wine, occasionally dessert. The kind of meals that involved lingering over multiple courses that took 2 or 3 hours rather than a quick bite. The most recent receipt was from last Friday, 6 days ago. Avec Restaurant, one of Chicago's most acclaimed spots, known for its romantic ambiance and Mediterranean small plates designed for sharing. The receipt showed $287.43, charged at 9:47 p.m. Daniel had come home that night around 11 p.m., had kissed me hello while I was reading in bed, had said his work dinner with the acquisitions team had run late, that they'd had a lot to discuss about the merger his private equity firm was negotiating. I'd believed him, had no reason not to believe him. Daniel worked in private equity, spent his days analyzing companies for potential acquisition, attending meetings with executives and lawyers and financial advisors. Work dinners were routine. Friday evenings at nice restaurants with colleagues wasn't unusual in his industry, where billion-dollar deals were negotiated over wine and steak. Except this receipt wasn't for a work dinner. The itemization showed 2 entrees, not the 4 or 5 you'd expect if Daniel had been dining with the acquisitions team, as he'd claimed. 2 cocktails, a Manhattan and something called a Violet Hour, not the beer or whiskey his male colleagues typically ordered. And the tip calculation showed 22%, which was higher than the standard 20%. Daniel always calculated exactly, suggesting he'd been trying to impress someone, had rounded up generously to appear sophisticated or generous. I photographed every receipt with my phone before putting them back exactly as I'd found them. 17 photos documenting 4 months of Friday evening dinners Daniel had never mentioned. 4 months of him saying he was working late, or having team dinners, or meeting with clients when he was actually at romantic restaurants with someone who ordered Violet Hour cocktails and shared Mediterranean small plates designed for intimate dining. The other driver was waiting for the insurance card. I found it, provided the information, handled the accident logistics while my brain was simultaneously trying to process what the receipts meant. Then I drove home to the house Daniel and I had bought in Evanston 3 years ago, the house where we were raising our 2 sons, Michael, who was 14, and Sam, who was 12, the house that represented our successful professional couple life in suburban Chicago. I didn't confront Daniel immediately. Instead, I spent that Saturday doing research. I Googled each restaurant on the receipts. All were romantic. All had ambiance designed for dates rather than business meals. Several had reviews specifically mentioning them as perfect for anniversaries, or ideal for impressing a date, or romantic atmosphere. I cross-referenced the receipt dates with Daniel's calendar. He kept it synced to our shared Google Calendar, so I theoretically always knew where he was. Every Friday that had a receipt also had a calendar entry. Team dinner, or client meeting, or acquisitions discussion. Vague enough to be plausible, specific enough that I wouldn't ask questions, false enough that I'd been systematically deceived for 4 months. I checked our credit card statements. None of these restaurant charges appeared, which meant Daniel was paying cash or using a credit card I didn't know about. Either way, he was actively hiding these dinners, was making sure there'd be no paper trail for me to discover unless I happened to find physical receipts hidden in his car's glove compartment. That night, Daniel came home from playing golf with his friend Marcus. At least, that's what he'd told me his Saturday plans were. I watched him walk in, kiss me on the cheek, ask about my day, start telling me about his golf game. Watched him perform the role of faithful husband with the ease of someone who'd been lying successfully for months. "How was golf?" I asked. "Great. Shot an 84, which is better than I've been doing lately. Marcus shot 89, so I actually beat him for once." "And dinner last night? You said it ran late?" "Yeah, the acquisitions discussion got complicated. We were going through financial projections for the merger target, trying to figure out valuation. You know how it is. These things take time when there's a lot of money on the line." "Who was there? From your team?" He listed 3 names. Colleagues I'd met at firm events, people whose faces I could picture. "And Rebecca from legal," he added. "She's been handling the contract negotiations." Rebecca, a name I'd heard before in passing. Daniel occasionally mentioned her in work stories. Rebecca caught a problem in the merger agreement, or Rebecca is handling the regulatory filings. Professional mentions that had never triggered concern because she was just another colleague in an office full of colleagues Daniel worked with daily. "What did you order?" I asked, pushing slightly. "Steak." "Usual. Why?" "Just curious. You don't usually talk about work dinners in much detail." He shrugged. "Not much to tell. Food was good. Conversation was work. Pretty standard. Lies. Smooth lies told convincingly enough that if I hadn't found the receipts, I'd have believed every word. Monday morning, I did something I'd never done before. I called Daniel's office, pretending to be his wife, checking on something innocuous. His assistant, Angela, answered, friendly and professional, as always. "Hi, Angela. It's Nicole. I'm trying to coordinate Daniel's schedule with some family plans and wanted to double-check. Did his team dinner on Friday run late? He got home around 11, and I'm trying to figure out if this is going to be a regular thing with the merger." There was a pause. Then Angela said carefully, "Daniel didn't have anything on his calendar Friday evening. He left the office around 5:30. "Oh, maybe it was a last-minute thing he didn't calendar. Maybe. But we didn't have any team events scheduled. The Friday standing meetings have been canceled for the past month because Mark is out on paternity leave." I thanked her, hung up, sat with the information. Daniel had left work at 5:30 p.m. last Friday. Had gone to Avec restaurant where he'd spent $287.43 on a romantic dinner for 2. Had come home at 11 p.m., claiming he'd been at a work dinner with his acquisitions team. And his assistant confirmed there was no work dinner, no team meeting, nothing scheduled that evening, which meant Daniel was having an affair. Had been having an affair every Friday for 4 months. Was meeting someone at romantic restaurants, paying cash to hide the evidence, lying to me about work dinners to explain his absence. I thought about Rebecca from legal. the name he'd mentioned as being at the non-existent team dinner. Was Rebecca the affair partner? Was Daniel spending every Friday evening with the woman handling contract negotiations while telling me it was work? I looked up Rebecca on the firm's website. Found her in the legal team directory. Rebecca Chen, senior counsel, specialized in M&A transactions and contract law. The photo showed an attractive woman, maybe early 40s, professional but stylish, the kind of person who'd fit naturally at expensive restaurants, who'd order cocktails with names like Violet Hour. I could confront Daniel with the receipts, hand them to him and say, explain these. Explain 4 months of secret Friday dinners at romantic restaurants. Explain lying about work events that didn't happen. Watch him scramble to construct explanations or excuses or denials, or I could gather more evidence. Follow him next Friday. See for myself who he was meeting, what this affair actually looked like in practice, rather than just on receipts. I chose evidence. Because confronting Daniel with receipts he could potentially explain away felt less powerful than confronting him with irrefutable proof of exactly what he'd been doing. Friday evening, I told Daniel I was going to book club at my friend Sarah's house. We'd had a real book club that met monthly, so the excuse was plausible enough that he wouldn't question it. I kissed him goodbye, told him to handle dinner for Michael and Sam, said I'd be home by 10:30. Then I drove to the parking garage near Daniel's office building in the Loop. Arrived at 5:15 p.m., found a spot with a view of the exit, waited. Daniel left his building at 5:41 p.m., walked 2 blocks to a different parking garage where he kept his BMW. I followed him at a distance through downtown traffic, feeling absurd playing private investigator, but also committed to seeing this through. He drove to the West Loop, parked near Randolph Street, where many of Chicago's best restaurants were clustered. I parked 2 blocks away and walked, keeping distance, watching as Daniel entered Girl and the Goat, one of Chicago's most popular restaurants, always crowded, always requiring reservations weeks in advance. I waited outside for 10 minutes. Then I walked in, told the hostess I was meeting someone, scanned the dining room while she checked her reservation list. There was Daniel, at a table in the back corner, clearly chosen for privacy. He wasn't alone. Across from him sat a woman who wasn't Rebecca from legal. She was younger, maybe late 20s or early 30s, with dark hair pulled into a sleek ponytail, wearing a dress that looked expensive and chosen carefully. She was laughing at something Daniel had said, leaning forward in that way people lean when they're interested, engaged, attracted. I watched them for 30 seconds before the hostess came back asking if I'd found my party. I said no, must be at the wrong restaurant, and left before Daniel could notice me standing there watching his affair unfold over small plates and craft cocktails. I drove home, sat in my car in our driveway for 20 minutes, trying to process what I'd seen. Then I went inside where Michael and Sam were doing homework while half watching TV. The normal Friday evening scene playing out like Daniel's affair hadn't just been confirmed. "Where's Dad?" Michael asked. "Work dinner," I said. "He'll be home later." The lie tasted bitter. But I wasn't going to tell our 14-year-old son that his father was actually at a romantic restaurant with a woman young enough to be his daughter. Daniel came home at 11:23 p.m. I was in bed pretending to read, waiting for him to perform his usual routine. "How was book club?" he asked while changing into pajamas. "Good. We discussed the new Celeste Ng novel. How was your dinner?" "Fine. Same merger talk, you know how it is. I'm exhausted." He got into bed, kissed me goodnight, rolled over. Within 10 minutes, he was asleep, apparently unburdened by 4 months of lying or tonight's romantic dinner with his affair partner. I lay awake until 2 a.m. trying to decide what to do. Confront him with the receipts? Tell him I'd followed him and seen him with a young, dark-haired woman at Girl and the Goat? Demand explanations? File for divorce? The next morning, I made my decision. I woke Daniel at 7 a.m., told him we needed to talk, sent Michael and Sam to my sister's house for the day. When he came downstairs, I had the 17 receipts spread across our kitchen table, like evidence at a trial. "Explain these," I said. His face went pale. "Where did you find those?" "Your glove compartment. I was looking for the insurance card after a fender bender last week. Found these instead. 17 restaurant receipts from the past 4 months. All romantic restaurants. All Friday evenings. All dinners you never mentioned. Want to explain who you've been taking to $300 dinners while lying to me about work events?" He sat down, didn't touch the receipts. "I can explain." "Then explain. Explain 4 months of secret Friday dinners. Explain lying about team meetings that didn't happen. Explain the young woman you were with last night at Girl and the Goat. You followed me. I verified what the receipts already told me. You're having an affair. You've been having an affair for months. Now tell me who she is and how long this has been going on." He put his head in his hands. "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You're cheating on me. Have been cheating on me every Friday while pretending it's work. The only question is whether you're going to be honest now or continue lying." "Her name is Lily," he said quietly. She's my daughter." I stared at him. "Your daughter?" "Yes, from before we met. From a relationship I had in college. I didn't know she existed until 6 months ago. Her mother, Jessica, reached out, said Lily wanted to meet me, that she was 28 now and wanted to know her father. The words didn't make sense. Daughter, 28, college. You have a daughter you never told me about. I didn't know about her. Jessica got pregnant senior year and never told me. She moved to California after graduation, raised Lily alone. I had no idea. Then last August, Jessica found me on LinkedIn, said Lily had been asking about me her whole life, sent me a photo. She has my eyes, Nicole, my nose. She's definitely mine. And you've been meeting her every Friday for 4 months without telling me. I didn't know how to tell you. How do you tell your wife of 18 years that you have an adult daughter from a relationship before you even met? That this woman you've never mentioned has a child you didn't know existed? I didn't know how to have that conversation, so I started meeting Lily for dinner, getting to know her, trying to build a relationship with this daughter I'd missed 28 years of raising. By lying, by pretending it was work, by hiding it completely. Because I was scared. Scared you'd be angry I had a secret child. Scared you'd think I'd been lying about my past. Scared of how Michael and Sam would react. Scared of everything getting complicated when it felt simpler to just keep Lily separate. Separate? She's your daughter. How long were you planning to keep her secret? I don't know. I wasn't thinking long term. I was just trying to get to know her, one dinner at a time. Every Friday we'd meet somewhere and talk about her life, her job. She's a graphic designer, her childhood, what it was like growing up without a father. His voice broke. She's amazing, Nicole. Smart and funny and creative, and she wanted to know me, wanted a relationship with me even though I was absent her entire life. I felt too many emotions at once. Relief that Daniel wasn't having an affair, anger that he'd lied for months, confusion about a stepdaughter I'd never known existed, hurt that he hadn't trusted me with this information. "Show me," I said. "Show me proof that Lily is real, that this isn't an elaborate lie to cover an affair." He pulled out his phone, opened his photos, scrolled to a folder labeled Work Files, which I'd never looked at because I'd assumed it was exactly what it claimed to be. The folder was full of photos of Daniel with a young woman who had his eyes, his nose, his smile. Photos from restaurants I recognized from the receipts. Photos of them at Millennium Park, at the Art Institute, at Navy Pier. Months of photos documenting a relationship he'd been building with the daughter he'd never known about. "This is Lily," he said, showing me a photo where she was laughing at something off camera. "This was at Avec last week. She was telling me about a client from hell at her design firm. She has my sense of humor. Makes the same sarcastic observations about people." I looked at the photos, saw Daniel's face, genuinely happy, engaged, proud. The face of a father with his daughter, not a man having an affair. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked again. "Because I was ashamed. Because finding out you have an adult child you never knew about forces you to confront that you were careless, that you got someone pregnant and never checked, that you walked away from a relationship and never looked back. Jessica said she tried to find me to tell me she was pregnant, but I'd moved and changed my number, and she didn't have resources to track me down. By the time Lily was born, Jessica decided it was easier to raise her alone than keep trying to find a college boyfriend who'd obviously moved on. That's not your fault. It feels like my fault. It feels like I should have known somehow, should have been there. And now Lily exists, and she's 28, and I missed everything. Her first words, her first day of school, her graduation, everything. I'm trying to build something now, but I'm starting from zero. And you thought you had to do that alone? Without telling me? I thought it would be easier if I figured it out first, got to know her, made sure the relationship was viable before introducing chaos into our family. Our family includes you. Your chaos is my chaos. Your daughter is our family's situation to navigate together, not your secret to manage alone." He looked at me with red eyes. "I'm sorry. You're right. I should have told you immediately. Should have trusted you with this. Instead, I lied for months and made everything worse." "Yes, you did." We sat in silence. I looked at the receipts spread across the table. Evidence I'd thought proved an affair. Evidence that actually proved Daniel had been secretly building a relationship with the daughter he'd never known he had. "I want to meet her," I said. "Lily?" "Yes. If she's your daughter, she's part of our family. Michael and Sam have a half-sister they don't know about. We need to figure out how to integrate her into our lives instead of keeping her secret. She wants to meet you. Has been asking to meet you. I kept saying I needed to tell you first, that I was waiting for the right time. There's no right time for I have a secret adult daughter. There's just doing it, which you should have done months ago." The next Friday, I met Lily. Daniel invited her to our house for dinner, the first time in 4 months of dinners that he'd allowed her into his real life instead of keeping her compartmentalized in downtown restaurants where she wouldn't intersect with his family. She arrived at 6:30 p.m., nervous, holding a bottle of wine that probably cost more than it should have because she was trying to make a good impression. Michael and Sam were at friends' houses. We'd decided to have this first meeting without them, would introduce the concept of a half-sister separately once Lily and I had met. "Hi," she said, when I opened the door. "I'm Lily. You must be Nicole. I've heard so much about you. She had Daniel's eyes, his mannerisms, his way of standing with weight on one leg, like she wasn't quite sure she had a right to take up space. Come in, I said. I've heard nothing about you until last week, so we have a lot to catch up on. She winced. I'm sorry. I know Dad kept me secret. That wasn't what I wanted. I kept telling him he needed to tell you. Over dinner, homemade lasagna, garlic bread, the casual family meal Daniel and Lily had never shared. We talked about Lily's life in Chicago, her graphic design career, growing up in California with a single mother who'd told her stories about her father, but had never managed to reconnect with him. About Jessica, who'd passed away 2 years ago from ovarian cancer, whose death had prompted Lily to search for Daniel because she had no other family left. I don't want to disrupt your family, Lily said carefully. I just wanted to know where I came from, who my father was. I didn't expect... She stopped. I didn't expect him to want to actually know me back, to want to have dinners every week, to care. He cares, I said. He just handled it badly. Kept you secret when he should have introduced you. Made you feel like something to hide when you're actually someone worth knowing. By the end of dinner, I liked Lily. She was funny, self-deprecating, clearly nervous about this entire situation, but trying to navigate it with grace. She wasn't demanding anything from Daniel or from our family. She just wanted connection with the father she'd never known. The following week, we told Michael and Sam, sat them down and explained that their dad had dated someone in college who'd gotten pregnant and never told him, that they had a half-sister named Lily who was 28 and wanted to be part of their lives if they were comfortable with that. Michael took it well, said, "So I have a sister? Cool." Sam was more skeptical, asked if this meant Daniel had more secret children we didn't know about, required reassurance that Lily was the only surprise offspring. We've been building relationships since then, 3 months of integrating Lily into our family in ways that feel authentic rather than forced. She comes to dinner every other week, joined us for Easter, met my parents who were confused but welcoming, developed a friendship with Michael, who's fascinated by having an adult sister who works in design. Daniel still has dinners with Lily on Fridays sometimes, but now I know where he is. Now the receipts aren't hidden. Now he texts me photos from the restaurant and says, "Having dinner with Lily, be home by 10. Last month I found a new receipt in his glove compartment. Girl and the Goat, $312, $67, Friday evening. But this time, instead of hiding it, Daniel had written on it, Lily's birthday dinner. Can't believe my daughter is 29. So grateful I get to know her now, even though I missed so many years." I keep that receipt as a reminder that sometimes the evidence of infidelity you think you're finding is actually evidence of something more complicated. That restaurant receipts for romantic dinners might be father-daughter bonding rather than affair. That the young woman your husband is taking to expensive restaurants might be his child rather than his mistress. The first 17 receipts taught me something about trust and secrets and the lies people tell when they're scared to tell the truth. Daniel was wrong to keep Lily secret. Wrong to lie about work dinners for 4 months. Wrong to assume I couldn't handle the complexity of him having an adult daughter from a relationship before we met. But I also understand why he did it. Fear makes people do irrational things, makes them hide truths that should be shared, makes them compartmentalize parts of their lives that should be integrated. We're working on trust now, on Daniel learning to tell me hard truths instead of comfortable lies, on me learning to respond to those truths with curiosity rather than immediate judgment, on building a family that includes Lily rather than one that treats her like an awkward complication. Those restaurant receipts almost destroyed our marriage. I was convinced they were proof of an affair, was preparing for confrontation and divorce and single motherhood. Instead, they were proof of Daniel building a relationship with a daughter he'd never known he had. Sometimes the evidence you find means exactly what it appears to mean: affair, betrayal, deception. But sometimes it means something else entirely, something unexpected and complicated, and ultimately less threatening to your marriage than you feared. The receipts were real. The lies were real. But the affair I imagined didn't exist. Just a father getting to know his daughter. Just 17 Friday dinners, documenting a relationship that should have been happening out in the open, but instead was relegated to downtown restaurants and secret receipts hidden in glove compartments. I'm glad I found those receipts. Glad I confronted Daniel. Glad the truth came out before he'd built an entire separate life with Lily that we could never integrate with ours. And glad I now have a stepdaughter I never expected, but am learning to appreciate as part of our expanded family. That's the story of the restaurant receipts. Not an affair, but a secret daughter. Not betrayal, but complicated family dynamics. Not evidence of loving someone else romantically, but evidence of learning to love a daughter he'd missed 28 years of knowing. The receipts led me to truth. And the truth, while initially shocking and painful, was something our marriage could survive. Something our family could grow to accommodate. Something that made us larger rather than destroying us. Sometimes that's all you can ask for. That the secrets, when revealed, turn out to be things you can work with rather than things that end everything. The restaurant receipts could have ended our marriage. Instead, they expanded our family. And that feels like the better outcome, even if getting here required 4 months of lies and one very uncomfortable confrontation over receipts spread across our kitchen table.